here with Nick and Gates from Leader Games, and we're going to be talking about the two latest expansions for Root, the Underworld Expansion and the Clockwork Expansion, and maybe even Fort, which is subtly on the back wall.
It's over here. Yeah, there's messaging here. We'll talk about it.
How are you guys doing today?
We're doing good. How are you guys?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just kicking off another virtual convention. We're always excited about it. It's different, but we're still enjoying it, you know. So Gates, did you want to kind of tell us what you get in the Underworld expansion?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you guys can see down below me, there's a lot that we had offered with the Root Underworld Kickstarter, and then we also have a bunch on our table. But first things first, with the Underworld expansion, we introduced two new factions, which is the Corvid Conspiracy, which is that purple faction, and then the Underground Duchy. So we got the Crows and the Moles being added. We also have a new double-sided board, one that features the lakeside and then also the mountain pass there. Which Nick here is one of our developers that worked on Underworld. So he's going to explain both of the factions and what it brings to the table.
Totally. So yeah, so the Corvid Conspiracy, my personal favorite of the two in it. They're kind of a spy faction, would be the thing. So what they're trying to, it was really important that thematically they feel mysterious while also feeling threatening, and like you don't exactly know what's going on. So what they have in the game is these little plot tokens. And you'll see that on the back of them, they're all the same. So on the back, they'll just have this little feather. But then on the front side, they all have unique little icons. And what that does in the game is you actually are putting them out on the table face down, kind of placing your bets about what you think you want to happen where, and then on your following turn, you can reveal those plots to your opponents to blow up spaces in a clearing or ensnare them in there forever. They also even have one where if you attack it thinking it was a bomb, it'll go ahead and spread out and get warriors everywhere on the map.
Nice.
So that's kind of their whole thing. It's very and on top of that, there's also a mechanism where if, like, let's say I go and I put a token in one of those spots. Oh my goodness. Gates can then go ahead and try to guess what that token is, and if she guesses right, go ahead, she removes it. If she doesn't, though, I actually get a card from her. So we kind of get to play in this this fun mind gamesy kind of mode there.
Lots of bluffing to be had.
Yeah, it's lots of bluffing. It's lots of feeling like, is it okay? It's a lot of pushing the can down the road kind of thing. Like you're like, I don't want to deal with the bomb. Maybe Gates will deal with the bomb. And kind of going down that thing. The really simple faction is the other thing. I think we were really, it was important that these factions don't feel just tacked on and ramping up complexity, continuing to get more complex. The Corvids are just as complicated as the Woodland Alliance or another insurgent faction, right? So it's really important. The other one here, the Underground Duchy, they're another large military faction. So the reason we wanted them in the game was, our current big military factions are the Eerie, the Cats, and the Lizards, which are great. But at some point in Root, you do kind of need some of those bigger factions as you go into larger player counts that you have them. So they're another large unit or high unit density faction. The big thing that they have is this deck of cards. I'll pull them out for myself. What they do is they're electing much like the Eerie, they're kind of a hybrid between the Eerie and the Cats. So they have a set of buildings that they can go ahead and build out. They only have 2 of them, though, and they don't get points for building buildings. That's kind of the Cats thing. What they do have is they get points for electing new leaders. So how the Eerie has leaders that they have, the Moles have their own ministers that they're going to elect, which will get them points, and then also get them new abilities. And you'll see, there's kind of a different ranks of them. So there's squires, nobles, and lords.
They're so
and they all
adorable.
have kind of increasing powers and also require that you control more of the map in order to sway them. So they're very map focused. Cards in their hand are really valuable, as well as their units on the map. One of my favorite things they do is they draw influence essentially by just being in a clearing. So as long as you're hanging out in a spot with red, that means that you can play red cards to sway them into your thing. So it really makes you care about units on the map in a way that some other factions don't, which I think is really exciting. The other thing that Gates talked about was the map. So that's, this is one side of the map you see here. This is the playmat version we have. which you can always upgrade to, on our web store, all that stuff. So what the maps do, the maps actually change the game in a more dynamic way than I even expected as we started working on them. So the lake kind of has this big, giant opening in the middle, and you'll see the maps really broken up because of that. So with so few connections, this often is a little bit more of an engine building map. You see people kind of staking claims, taking a bit of time, and then there's this adorable wooden raft piece, which is what you can use to travel between any of the actual dock clearings. So you can put your little guys on it.
Maple guys.
And then also when you use it, you get a card, and that's just kind of a little mechanic in there. But you'll quickly see games, the things that both these maps do, and I'll explain the other one, is they make you really care about central locations. There become spots that fights matter for. And the raft, for example, is one. Like owning the raft is really important, because if you own the raft, you can go and invade these 3 clearings essentially for free.
And you do have to pay for the raft.
Yes. Well, you get paid for using the raft. Yes. They appreciate your pilgrimage, or whatever. And then the other side, the mountain map. I was just, I could just hold it up. Well, they're
they're going to. Nikki's got it.
This is the professional setup
totally
here.
got it.
So the mountain map, which is, they flip to there on the opposite side, has a central clearing called the Mountain Pass, which actually players will compete for control over. There's an adorable, also little wooden component that comes with it. You can even put a little maple in the tower.
Who has control?
But yeah, and at the end of your turn, whoever has control of it will go ahead and get a point. So again, it creates this, there's an immediate battle for the center.
Oh, what was that, Candace?
I was just gonna say, and those blockers are blocking off the orange spaces on the map, right? And you have to remove them so that you can actually move between.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So those orange ones are getting. Yep. They're covering them right now. Yep. And those are essentially kind of the same way this one is. It decreases at the beginning of the game the amount of connections on the map, and on this one you do need to pay to get those clearings open. So there is kind of a bit of a standoff that'll happen where, like, I'm on one side of the mountain, you're on the other side. Who's going to be the one to pay the card and come over? Yeah. You're kind of sitting there just hoping neither of you do sometimes. So those really add like a whole, in terms of where your pieces are on the map, those change the game in a huge way. And that's kind of everything that you get in just the Underworld expansion. Yeah,
which is a lot, so you get a lot more than what you would get in the Riverfolk expansion, a lot more content to be had. But the other thing, too, that is going to be coming out, and I think is on there, is the Clockwork expansion, which off to Nikki's left side, which I have the box currently. So this allows you to play solo mode, expands out to 4 different bots. It also expands out to where you can have more variety for a cooperative mode.
Yep.
And Nick, do you want to cover over what like the Electric Eerie and everybody does?
Describing how they function in general. So Benjamin Strauss is the designer of these, notably. So he had a project on BGG that he was working on that we worked with him and adopted it and collaborated with him to make this. What the factions do in general is they're essentially just like really aggressive point scoring machines that will they have some knowledge of map position that will inform them to go to different spaces. So there's a priority system in the map about their actions where, when they go to check who they're going to battle, they'll fight the person with the most points, or they'll fight the person with the nearest buildings, or what have you, with tiebreakers being decided, by those priority markers that you put out. So what they do for play-wise is, my favorite part about them is, at least if we wanted to, we could do something like you and me could both play insurgent factions and play against the bot. So what I kind of tell people is that the Clockwork expansion allows you to have less games where you're like, oh, well, one of us should play this role, because you can always just make the bot do it if you want, which I think is really nice, because, it's fun to play those weird low reach games, but every once in a while you want to make sure it all sings in that right way, so you can throw one of these bots in to kind of get there. The Vagabond is one of my favorite small things they changed with it. Not changed, but we have with it, is that there's even 3 different little Vagabond characters that are slightly different as well. So we really tried to make them feel in some way like the factions that they represent. They're not just it's not just a thing that scores 4 points every turn or whatever like that. And then what they're highlighting also now is we have the traits and the difficulty cards, which are again traits the traits are almost difficulty cards, but the traits are more like flavor. So it's like if you want the Eerie to play in a way that's more conservative or it builds more, this kind of the traits will do, while the difficulty is exactly what you'd expect. If it's way too easy, you know, I'd love to see somebody beat all of the bots on like nightmare mode or whatever, because I've tried. It's very hard. If you go like hardest traits, hardest difficulties, you can set yourself up for like an actual challenge if that's what you want in your board gaming night. Or if it's too your games, you can put it on easy, and it'll kind of just be there as an opposing force, which is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big thing too. Like if we were at a convention, I usually give this to people who are 2 players that want to round out their games. But this has been super awesome for quarantine gaming too.
Yes.
We have a lot of solo board game reviewers on BGG that has reviewed this. So I definitely would recommend checking out the Clockwork BGG page. But no, and this is once again like a lot of value. Even just playing through the 4 different factions. There is a automated faction in Riverfolk, which is what introduces the Mechanical Marquise. But we have the Mechanical Marquise 2.0.
We got a software update.
So that's everything in Clockwork Expansion, and it looks like Nikki is pulling out other things that we expanded out in the Root Suite. So we have the Exiles and Partisan deck, which if you play Root every single week with your friends, and
you're gonna buy one thing, and you can only buy one thing. You're like doing some like I can only buy 10 objects this year. This is yes.
And for $10, the Exiles and Partisan deck that's being shown. I'll let Nick explain this because this is just super wild, and for $10 you can end up revamping your whole entire Root experience, even if you just have the base game.
So this doesn't even exactly good. So I think one of the nice things is that it doesn't require extra expansion material. And what it is it completely replaces the base deck. So you just swap it exactly out, take every single card that you got, put them away, put these ones in. You could combine them if you're crazy. Gates will help me open them. This is why we're a team.
Nikki's showing some.
All right, so we got all aspects. But what it does really importantly, so after whenever you're working on a game, there's things that are unknown a little bit, right? And after Root came out, we've played it in the office a ton since then. We're keep playing it, and what we realized is that we weren't satisfied entirely with the crafting, or like what you were able to craft more so. Crafting was cool, but you never felt like you were crafting something that was going to then change dramatically what you're working on. And this deck just leans into that pretty much as hard as we can. Cole and me made card powers where when we were in our pitch meetings, it was often like who can come up with a card that, go to the edge of how far you think a card could function in this game, and then let's dial it back, if anything. So you have cards that that will give you the abilities of other factions, right? So there's cards that will give you like the Boat Builders, which lets you now, move through the river as if you're the Otters, or you could get the Corvid Planners on your team, and now you can move as if you don't rule, right?
So there are a couple questions in the chat. Sorry to cut you off, Nick. There were
let's see
questions in the chat. One was, let me see, because I just lost my. Oh, there we go. What do the crowns do for the moles?
Great question.
Yeah, so the crowns on your player board, when you set up, you put them just out here onto your little player board. What they do is they cover up your little scoring objectives, or how many points you're going to score. And then after you've elected a minister, you actually put the little crown on the card. Just like so, this is just, you don't have to do this, but it just goes there to indicate that you've elected them and you score the points underneath. And then bonus, they do kind of work as a little hat if you really want to. You can even stack them on top of your moles. But it's just to represent, right now you only have these many to elect, and then they'll go here.
Nikki's got it.
Exactly, like that. Yes. And then the important thing, though, is after you've elected the minister, if you lose them, the crown does go back to the box. So you only have 3 elections that you could have, but you could elect the marshal 3 times. So you could keep getting deposed, you could keep bringing them back if you really got faith in them. But you only will be able to ever elect 3 squires. So it's a limiter on the types of people you can elect, essentially.
And then there was another question about asking if this is a good game for young kids 11 for a family game night.
Okay.
So actually it's interesting to advise that. I would say you definitely know what games that your children have been playing most. Like if they are playing something that's on the like weight class of even, I would say, Scythe, introducing them to Root Basic would be fine.
It's totally reasonable.
I do know kids. I've demoed Root with a bunch of children that get it immediately and far quicker than I know that are from deep gamer backgrounds and such. So it's definitely kind of being able to weigh out like your child and like the ability to pick up rules. The big reason why I would say is the asymmetry, is because you do have to be aware of not only what you're going to be doing next, but the intricate differences between everybody else at the table.
I think it kind of depends on like what your family gaming is exactly. Because sure. I do know, certainly I've seen people, you could point, a child to like, you just focus on your faction, you're the cats, you're going to get wood, you're going to build buildings. Absolutely. The core concepts of a single faction are pretty easy to understand generally. It kind of becomes that once you go into the web of all of the factions, then it starts to get a little weird. But I think if you start out with somebody, teach them one faction, see if that's something they're interested in, and kind of go from there. Because I've seen families that play it, certainly, and I've also seen families that struggle to play it. So it's kind of hard to say.
And we've talked to like the kids planning family. Like their kids absolutely love playing Root and everything like that. So it's definitely able to be achieved. By all means. So. And
then you guys have a Steam app coming out for Root soon, right?
Yes, so that is directly through Direwolf. It should be coming out later this year, which you can also put now on your wish list on Steam. So Direwolf has been working on that. We've been able to beta test, but we've kind of been able to just give them notes, so it's not like in studio. They did preview it at PAX East though, so it won't replace the board game experience so well. I know that some people ask like if they can run tournaments with it, and I definitely still recommend physically or doing TTS with that. But if you were wanting to be able to play with like you and your friend digitally, you can now do that and have that type of immersive experience Direwolf is known for.
I think like remote play is the big thing that'll be nice for it. So.
And then will that include all of the expansions, or is it just going to be base game initially?
Base game initially right now. As with all things, we are in talks with them about furthering the expansions, but we want to see how that base game initial release works.
Totally makes sense. Cool. And I know we wanted to spend some time and also mention Fort a bit, but is there anything else you guys wanted to mention about Root? Any of the upcoming expansions? Maybe those resin clearing markers?
I think the last two things that probably came out, other than the playmats, would be the resin clearing markers. The big accessory items that I would say that came out of this new expansion of products would be the playmats and the resin clearing markers. Like everybody knows, you have the cardboard clearing markers that are in your base game set. The resin clearing markers allows to give you a little bit more dimension to your board, and they're probably my favorite component. If anything, it'd be like the Exile and Partisan deck and the resin clearing markers, but it allows it to lift a little bit more off the board, so you can kind of survey the board a lot easier and be able to pick up the clearings too.
They're also something we care a lot about in studios. Like they're more immersive, which might not matter for some people, but like it's cute that like they're made of, these ones are made of stone and you got little nice wooden fence.
I think I'm good have to.
It kind of just like reflects on the world you're in rather than just a little red icon with a box on it or whatever. So
absolutely. Nikki's playing this out there.
And also they just get more, this type of component just gets more valuable as you get more maps. Because for both of the lake and the mountain map, it doesn't have pre-assigned clearings, so you do need the clearing markers, whether it's the punchboard ones that came with the base game or your cool upgraded ones. You will need that for the future maps. So.
And you can see if Nikki laid out the cardboard punch, so they are a little bit bigger.
They're easier to see, a little bit bigger.
Especially I think with on like the winter map, like the cardboard tokens are easy to see the color wise, but like the cardboard tokens now on a colored board is
really nice.
So and then other thing would be the Vagabond Pack, which I would say Patrick Leader, the owner of Leader Games and designer of the Underworld Expansion, huge Vagabond fan. So he's always constantly coming up with new things for the Vagabonds to do, which Nick will explain here. They're so cute.
So the Vagabond Pack was about giving those Vagabond players all of the love they deserve. So it involved giving them a meeple to represent every single possible Vagabonds you even could play. And then we also introduced 3 new Vagabonds. The reason that is because we made 2 of them, which are the Harrier and the Owl, so it's the squirrel and the owl, and then also the Ronin, which kind of retroactively goes back and makes the there's 2 Vagabond pawns in the original one, a white one and a black pawn. So now you have 2 not squirrel, I don't know, like animals, raccoon-based creatures to use with those, to use a few things. So you have the Ronin and the original Vagabond. And again, it's just more options within the faction. The Vagabond has a ton of play space, and I think they often have one of the most like tree branching trajectories in a game, where you might end up in a very different spot where like, oh, I need a quest to win, I need a craft to win. So I think these are nice because they just kind of give you more of that. The Adventurer doesn't play very similarly to like the Arbiter or somebody, right? So you kind of have your aggressive Vagabonds, your non-aggressive Vagabonds, and everything in the middle now.
And it's a nice, easy, just like the Exile and Partisan's deck, it's a nice, easy, it's a deck of card size thing that you can end up picking up for like $10, and it expands it if you just don't want to go into the expansion or just want to, like your base game a little bit more. So.
And all these tokens and upgrades are available directly on your website for Leader Games, but also retail, right? I think.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so we do have it up at leadergames.com that we recently relaunched. So it's a brand new fancy experience. But especially right now, I encourage people going out and supporting your local game store. It is out at distribution. So if you talk to your game store and they don't have it in stock, your game store can order directly from us, or they can also order it in distribution. So
cool. Are there any plans that you guys know of to make kind of a big box for Root for storing everything?
We've considered it. I think we don't want to ever say no, and how Patrick has answered that in the past is we want to finish out Root first. We still have a lot more plans for Root in the future. I think I can publicly say that after Oath development is finished, Cole will be moving on to more Root content. So awesome.
Okay, well we have a couple minutes left, so do you want to briefly touch on Fort and let people know about Fort?
Yes. So this is Fort that I have in my hands right now. It was originally SPQF, and Grant Rodiak had approached us. He had published it. It was very limited run. It was like 800 copies from his Kickstarter. He didn't want to publish anymore, but he had approached us, and Patrick picked it up, and Nick here has been a huge fan.
We reached out to them.
Yeah, we reached out to them. I know that it was at a convention.
Yeah, it was me and Cole were just really big fans of the original design, and then we were shopping around for designs and trying to figure it out, and we presented a bunch of them to Patrick, SPQF being one of them.
Right.
But it was this time last year that we pitched it to the studio.
Yeah, it was exactly. I looked at my files. It was like exactly August last year. Yep.
But yeah, Nick here headed up redevelopment for it. We rethemed it. We brought Kyle on for art, of course, and everything like that. It is our first direct retail game, which I want to talk on before I pass it over to Nick. So this didn't have a Kickstarter. It's pre-ordering right now on our website, and then it will be available at retail on August 25th. But I'll let Nick kind of break through how the game plays out and any possible changes between SPQF and such.
Sure. Yeah. You can start grabbing things and presenting them. You can just be my like.
I'll be Vanna White.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll be the Nikki.
So Fort is a deck building style game. Notably, one of the big things with this was that it was like the reason we were interested in it is it's a particularly weird game for how small of a footprint it has. So it's a deck building game that changes a few of the important things on the formula, which is why I was into it, even originally as the pitch. And the few things I tell people right away is it's a deck building game where, unlike most where you're going to play your entire hand on a turn and do a bunch of combos and stuff, in Fort you're going to play one card and you're going to resolve its actions, and maybe you're going to increase the potency of those actions. And then everybody else at the table is going to also get to do a really basic form of that action. And then the most important part, any cards you don't use on your turn go out into a public trade row that other people can take from. And that is like the biggest rub of the game. This open market of cards that's trading between people, and the value of a card throughout the game, right? So certain actions, the way the game works in general, you're using your actions to collect the pizza and toys resources, and using those to convert and increase your level.
And these boards are dual layer.
They are.
So like no more at your game night? Is your hand going to brush across your and knock anything over?
You could play it on a boat.
You can play it on, actually, yeah, you can play it on a boat.
And you're using those resources then to just go ahead and increase your fort level. And at the end of the game, I mean, it's a point game at the end of the day. What you're trying to do is have the most points, which is represented, or having the coolest fort is represented by having the most points.
Yeah.
And there's a number of ways to do that. You could either increase your fort level, you could be eating pizza and toys throughout the game to be collecting points that way. And at the end of the game, yeah, the person there's 3 ways the game can end. If somebody completes their fort level all the way, they will build a macaroni sculpture in their honor, get a few bonus points. Or if somebody reaches 25 on the victory track, or if you run out of all of the kids in the guard, everybody's gone home gone back home, all the kids are gone, then the game is over as well. It was a really fun development process. I mean, getting to work on a game, it was getting to work on a game I liked a lot already, and just trying to share it with more people, which is, I mean, I think it's all you can ask to do in the industry. So it was really cool to get to work on. Absolutely,
and especially with games, going from Root to Oath, we've talked a lot about the complexity with both Root and Oath. Because Oath, I think, how do we judge, it's how many Root factions?
Oh, like 1.5, 2.
Yeah, so to have a game, too, that is a lot more approachable on the teach, too, to get to your table, and it still captures that very, what we like to call weird element.
Yes.
And I think we can trail off for days to talk about the Leader Games brand, but it does capture still everything I think what our studio does put out, and to put it in a smaller box to have kind of introduced to their friends, and they'll catch that little spark, and then to go to Root would make sense for them.
Yeah. It's that highly interactive games type with not a lot of guardrails to keep players in line. It's very free-form deck builder in that way, which is very interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, like I said, this is on pre-order on our website right now. We did launch the tabletop simulator, which we're using for Gen Con online right now. So if you have an event with us, you'll be able to see and interact with it. But you'll also be able to play online right now if you want to.
You could just do it yourself if you really want.
Play. Stuff like that.
Well, thank you so much, Nick and Gates, for showing us the Root Underworld expansion, the Root Clockwork expansion, and Fort from Leader Games.
Yeah.
It's great to see you guys, and thanks again.